So the idea of just getting rid of guns is a go-to for many people. If we just get rid of guns, we end gun violence. It's not wrong, but there's a certain flaw to the logic of that, to your reasoning. It's the equivalent of to end auto fatalities, let's just get rid of cars. It's not that simple. And yes, getting rid of guns gets rid of gun violence, but it doesn't get rid of violence. And there's a bunch of other factors involved as to why it's impractical to go with the ban guns route. Current polls show about 29% of Americans own guns, and current polls show that there's about 300 million guns in the US. America has a population of just over 300 million, so that's just about enough guns for everybody, but also less than one third of the population actually owns them. So that means that they own more than one. Actually, they own three on average. Now, this is probably not the case. Most likely, most gun owners own only one, and a small percentage of them own many. But that does mean that you are going to have to come up with a way to get guns out of the hands of 93 million people. And that's assuming that all 93 million people want to willingly hand them over. Because that's pretty much the only option you're going to have to collect that many guns from that many people, is that set up drop points for people to willingly hand them over. Then what are you going to do about the people that don't want to hand them over willingly? And even if only 1% of gun owners don't want to hand them over, that's still 930,000 people that don't want to willingly hand over their guns, and you'll have to try and take by force. And that 1% is most likely that 1% that owns a large amount of guns. And it's most likely people who are part of paramilitary militias and activism groups. Most likely already criminals and gang members. You're not going to get them to just hand over the guns, in which you will have to use deadly force to get it, because most of these people will take the stance of, you'll get my gun when you pry it from my cold dead hands. And as you know, many people like to point out that criminals don't abide by laws anyhow, so you can make all the gun laws you want. Someone who's already saying fuck it to the laws isn't suddenly going to draw the line at gun laws. Be like, oh, I can break and enter into this person's house and steal what I want, but I can't own a gun. No, that's where I'm drawing the line. The law says I can't own a gun, but fuck the law that says I can't break into this person's house. So that doesn't solve the problem. The UK banned guns in 97. In 96, they had a homicide rate of 11 per million. In 2016, they had a homicide rate of 9.9. So you'd think it worked. It ended gun violence, but the thing is, in 03, they had a homicide rate of 17 per million. So there was a really drastic spike at first. Not sure what exactly the cause of it was. I don't know if there was just people thinking that if the guns are going away, I'm going to go and use it to its fullest before it gets taken from me, or there was other factors involved. But the point is still there that you didn't solve murders. You lowered it a little bit, but that could also just be due to socioeconomic factors. That could be due to the increase in police force in the UK. There's other factors involved in the homicide rate. So then, what will work? What will help the situation? Well, many things. There's many things we have to do. It's not just one thing that's going to solve the problem completely. It's many aspects of our society that we have to work on and come to terms with and figure out what we're going to have to do and actually have the real conversations we need to have about them. My opinion when it comes to guns and responsible gun owners is, if you want to own a gun, go for it. If you're a target shooter, fine, own a gun. If you're a hunter and you want to use guns, go for it. I got no problem with it. My problem with gun owners is the ones that say that they need it for defense. I don't say that you can't use a gun for self-defense, but it's a bit of an extreme measure when it comes to self-defense. By asking to be able to carry a gun on you at all times in order to defend yourself, you're asking for permission to murder a person if need be. You're saying that I'm responsible enough and rational enough that I can make the judgment call that in a scenario I can murder a person and it's a justifiable homicide. I want to make sure that these people are of sound mind, because I'm sure there are. I don't doubt that there are people who, with the proper education and training, are perfectly responsible gun owners. What I don't like is the gun owners that think that they can just flash the gun, that they can just intimidate people because they have the gun and they can just end the situation. This is cowardice in my mind. You're not dealing with the situation. You're hiding behind the gun, thinking that you can't be touched because you have a gun. I don't like these kinds of people. This is where we run into problems, because they're just going to escalate situations instead of de-escalate situations like a responsible gun owner should. There's, of course, situations where there isn't time to talk it out. There's times where you have someone actively shooting at people and you just need to put that person down. I want to know that the person carrying a gun in public can tell the difference between those situations. So our focus on gun violence shouldn't be on the gun part of gun violence. It needs to be on the violence part. We need to work to mitigate the amount of violence in our society. The way we view violence, the way we view physical altercations. So it comes down to, one, more focus on mental health and helping people who are clearly disturbed. Now, however that plays out and however we do that, that's a discussion for another video. As well as just our notions of when it's okay to let a situation turn physical. When is it okay to hit a person? Now you take the example of being at a bar. You're going to a bar, you're having a couple of drinks, and someone comes up and starts mouthing off to you, and starts pushing your buttons, insulting you. You try to take the high road and try and walk away. You use your words and just try and de-escalate the situation, but that person keeps persisting, trying to egg you on. People tend to only have so much tolerance for this stuff before they break and before they lash out. And I could forgive this, and I can understand it. It's reasonable, but the thing that bugs me is that we have this notion that going to the bouncer to have them intervene on our behalf and deal with it in a physical manner, that's not okay, and that's being a coward and not fighting your own battles. Where instead, that's exactly what we should be doing. Not letting ourselves get to the point where we lash out physically, but instead we turn to the people whose sole purpose is to deal with stuff in the physical altercation. Now, there's different situations, of course. It's where sometimes you have no choice, and I get that. But in the cases where we have the option to utilize the authorities, we shouldn't be shamed for not fighting our own battles. And we shouldn't be praised for fighting our own battles. Understood that we were pushed into a corner and had no choice but to act in this way, but it shouldn't be praised upon. If you're looking for praise for your fighting prowess, that's what the octagon's for. Go find someone who's willing to fight you and beat the shit out of them there. Or you want to do it in a team effort? Go play some football or go play some hockey or whatever and beat the shit out of each other there. You can be praised all you want for your fighting prowess then, and that's great. I do enjoy UFC. It's sometimes a great watch to watch just two people try and just obliterate each other. But an assault on the street? No, that's a very unfortunate situation. The situation that we have to do what we can to try and mitigate from happening in the first place. Because there's another reason why physical altercations take place. It's the criminals that mug people on the street, break into people's houses, causing people to feel like they need weapons to defend themselves. If we work to lower the crime rate, we'll also lower the assault rate. If we help people get out of poverty and out of that desperation that makes them turn to a life of crime, less moments where people feel that they have no choice but to defend themselves physically. It's not an easy solution for us to solve because it's not any one thing. It's so many different factors of our society that leads into this. It's time that we really start taking good, hard, honest looks at ourselves and at our behavior and taking far more pragmatic and empathetic approaches to this. We can't just shun people away and brush them aside and hope that the problem solves itself by far-reaching legislation. That doesn't solve the problem, it just shifts the problem. And so then I guess that's where I'm going to leave it today. Until next time. Bye. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to reading your comments below. Please like and share, and please consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. The link is in the description below.